if you don't know where to begin, better ask Win.
Shane, good to see you. We have a really important topic today, navigating the financial talk with aging parents. So we're going to discuss when you need to have this talk with your parents and what topics you need to include. But explain why having this conversation with your parents is so very important.
Well, it's a big deal because as parents age, typically the kids are going to have to take on more and more of a role to look after things, help the parents navigate life, and make sure that their affairs are in order. And it's a tough conversation to have sometimes, but you want to start this conversation earlier rather than later. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but make sure you start talking about it so that you have some baseline understanding of their situation.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think it is that we avoid it then? And do you have any suggestions to help get the ball rolling?
Well, so many parents, I think, are kind of old school, right? The kids
Yeah.
don't need to know anything. This is my
Right.
business. It's none of their business. They, don't need to meddle in my affairs. But we want to have these conversations, like I said, on the table, kind of do it in a lighthearted way. It doesn't have to happen all at once, maybe over time, but start bringing up these topics and say, hey, I want to make sure that, I at least know what's going on with your estate plan or where your accounts are held or who your advisor is. So if something ever happened to you, I know where to go.
Right.
And I think most parents would appreciate that.
Right. Understand that you're acting in their best interest. Good point.
Right.
So do you think then that the kids should be present at meetings with the parent's financial advisor?
Well, we always recommend it with our clients and say, hey, bring your kids along if you're comfortable with it, because it's good for them to know us and kind of know a little bit about where your money is and what's going on so that they can be tuned in if something were to happen to you. So definitely, if it's comfortable.
So when you do have this conversation, you suggest including a few specific topics, and that starts with their current financial status and income.
Exactly. So we want to make sure we know, where are the accounts held? Who's the custodian of the money? What types of accounts exist, policies, et cetera. And then always talk about income because it's such a big part of any retiree's situation, making sure there's a paycheck coming in because without that, they can't live. So that's going to be coming from things like Social Security, pensions, investment, yield, annuities, and the like. We want to make sure we know kind of these basics just so they have an understanding.
Mm-hmm. Next, make sure that they have a plan for healthcare and long-term care. And because it's so important, Shane, we talk about it a lot, but this is the cost of long-term care in your area, projected out about 20 years, ranging from $157,000 up to $222,000 a year. That's so expensive.
This is such a big deal. And I think people fail to understand how much of a big deal this is because long-term care is one of the single most underrepresented areas of coverage, I think, in America. And we know it's going to be brutally expensive down the road. And in reality, those costs are likely going to fall back on a lot of the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really going to be in a lot of the kids' best interest to try to make sure we have long-term care coverage in place, something to look after mom and dad so that the kids themselves don't have to do it. They don't have to stop working. They don't have to stop spending time with their own families to go take care of mom and dad. And so there's a lot of ways that you can put coverage in place to help with that need. And it's such an important area that we really talk about so often. And then, of course, the legacy plan, like you said, you want to make sure you have a will, a trust in place, preferably a trust most likely, to make sure the assets move from one party to the next without a lot of drama. And if it costs a few $1,000s, that's typically going to be most people's excuse not to do it. And the reason why it gets put off forever. But if it costs $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to put together a trust, depending on complexity, that still sounds like a deal when you know how much it costs to probate an estate. It can cost tens of thousands, depending on complexity, to probate an estate. And a lot of times you'll wish you simply bought that trust years prior. Mm-hmm. So those are so important. Both of those, we spend a lot of time talking about them, and pretty passionate about that, as you can tell, I think.
Yeah, no, you guys are always thinking about the whole family, and I do think that's really important. So if somebody would like to sit down with you and their parents or their kids, what's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach us is online or by phone. You can visit our website, winstonandcompanies.com, or give us a call on the phone here at the office, 602-456-1928 is the office number.
Great. Shane, thank you.
Thanks, Erin.
Got a plan for your retirement, 'cause you know it's just down the road. But if you don't know where to begin, better ask Win.